Morber Marketing. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you. Everybody hear me? Good. This is really kind of an exciting time for me because this is actually an anniversary of sorts for me. This year marks the 20th year that I've been involved in online communities. And that's really not that rare. I'm not the only one. There's been plenty of people who have been around for a hell of a lot longer than I have. But what's different in my case is I got involved in the whole online thing like totally by accident. It was not something I planned to do at all. Back then, 20 years ago, I was a big geek. I was really into computers. I'll be honest with you, back in my teens and 20s, I actually did the punch card programming. I mean, that's how long I've been into it. But I was also very, very into all the computer magazines that were around. And there was a lot of them around back then. In fact, a lot of them are still around today. But anyway, there was a contest. It was a writing contest in one of them. And I really wanted to win first prize. The first prize in this contest was a dream computer. It was my dream computer, which was, now are you ready for this? It was a 486 DX, 20 meg hard drive, 4 meg of RAM, dual floppies. It was the 5 1/4 and the 3 1/2. And now you're ready for this? It was a single button Bally mouse with the big long cord. I mean, I wanted this thing so bad I couldn't taste it. And I did not win the first prize. Second prize, though, I was excited about that. That was a color dot matrix printer. And I was like, I'd be happy with the printer. Printer's cool. Didn't win the printer, though. I didn't. I won third prize, which was a modem. And I really wasn't that excited about it, but I figured, you win anything. So anyway, the modem comes, and it comes UPS, and it came in a box about this big. Modem was this big. Box was this big, because back then, modems were $200-300, and the consumer technology mindset at that time is if I'm going to pay a couple $100 for something, it better be big. Unlike, say, 10 years later, where we were, if I'm paying a couple $100 for something, it better be small. Do you remember those little phones we had? We had those little teeny phones, and I had a little flip black and white TV. And that's how, and I'm so glad, by the way, as an aside, that we finally grown up and when it comes to technology, size doesn't really matter. We know that. But anyway, so I get the modem. I install it myself. Pretty excited about that. Now, you have to understand something about the internet back at that time, is that we were connecting, by a phone line, through the phone. So whatever service you were connecting to the internet to, unless you had what was called a local access number, where you could dial into the service without having to pay long distance. I see so many of you nodding. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You had to pay long distance charges. We also, at the time, didn't have nationwide calling plans. You basically had a calling plan. You called within city limits. You couldn't call all over the place. So you'd connect to the internet, you'd pay long distance charges, and then you would pay per hour to whatever services you were dialing into. We didn't have these, unlimited, I hear people who talk about, I'm paying $80 a month for unlimited access, and I'm like, ooh, boo-hoo kind of a thing. You could literally, back then, if you were online for a couple hours a day, spend $1,000 a month, easy. So what we did, for those of us who didn't have local access to anything, we dialed into what was called bulletin board systems, or BBSs for short. And a BBS, it was software, it was a DOS-based software, and it was installed on somebody's computer, and this computer was literally sitting in somebody's living room. And there was games on there, and there was discussion boards, and you could have email within the system, and you could have like this real kind of rudimentary kind of chat kind of a thing. And so you basically dial into this computer, and that's the way, you deal with that was your internet at the time. And I was really big into doing the discussion boards and the chats, because what was a big topic of conversation back then was technology and computing and who had what and what was coming and where this was going. By the way, this was like a little bit before cybersex got into the mainstream, so that's all we talked about was like geeky stuff. So one of the biggest debates going on at that time was whether the computer was going to replace the telephone as our main form of communication. And it was a fascinating discussion. And I'm going to tell you what somebody posted on a discussion board, and this is a paraphrase, but somebody actually said at that time, the computer will never replace the telephone as our main form of communication, because although the computer is very efficient at disseminating information, it will never rival the computer when it comes to the give and take and the exchange required of decision making. Did you hear that? The computer will never rival the telephone. The person who said that was an absolute moron. And I know they were a moron because the person who wrote that was me. I actually wrote that. And here's the thing with that, though. In my defense, there was a lot of dumb things like that were being said. Tons of dumb things. Because although we were used to, prior to that, advances in technology, we really didn't see these advances that were happening so fast like the internet. The internet got so big and so fast, so quick, that it really started to change the way we made decisions and thought about technology. Prior to this, when I made that telephone statement, it was a couple of years later or a few more years later, really, when I realized I was a moron. But things that happened so fast at that time, things happened so fast at that time that literally, you could say something on a Monday and be looking like a moron on a Friday. I mean, in 1992, websites on the World Wide Web doubled every 3 months. I mean, can you imagine that, how fast it got? So this became a time where I really started to notice in people and in companies rather than having this very contained, limited thought of making decisions, and this was a big lesson we learned then, making decisions on technology based on the technology of today is just a big mistake. And we stopped that because we started to realize, the sky's the limit. I started to hear that in a lot of conversations. We started to think about things that maybe we couldn't do now, but we didn't think of it as impossible anymore. We thought, this is going to happen someday. So I started to see companies, they would start to make decisions about technology as far as, where else can I go from here? Extensibility. That was whenever you bought a computer at that time, you would be thinking, can I upgrade the RAM? Can I switch out the CPU? You wanted to make sure that you were never going to get left behind because things were happening so fast. And then all of a sudden, I got to tell you, 15 years later or so, social media hits our landscape, and it's like, these companies lost their minds because they couldn't take that same great thought they had about technology and look at social media the same way. I saw companies, and I know a lot of you have probably seen the same thing, saw them say things like, or do things like, we don't want anything to do with this, it's just a fad. This is a fad, just ignore this. This is gonna go away, stay away from it. Or then there would be these other companies that would say, well, we need to get on everything all the time. I don't care what it is, but the key is we got to get on what's new. We got to be on what's new. And I even saw some companies at the time looked at social media as an IT, and actually had IT departments making decisions about their, I see more people nodding. It was an IT problem or an IT issue. And what I saw, though, that was even worse was the companies that made decisions about social media based on the decision makers' preferences. I heard things like this. Our company is gonna get a Facebook page because my staff is most comfortable with Facebook. Or here's another one I heard, and I loved this. We've decided to go with Twitter because my nephew, who's in high school and knows about this stuff, says you can buy followers. So if I buy, problem solved. Or my other favorite, I might hear this one, and I heard this one recently. We're gonna get on Pinterest because Pinterest is new, and you got to be on the newest thing. I don't know why. I'm an accountant, but I'm going to figure out a way to get on Pinterest. And the thing about this is that, and you all know this. This is why you're here. Is that social media is not a technology issue. It's about people. It's not about technology. And these companies that are so afraid of making a mistake, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or sticking to a social media platform because it's where they're comfortable, and not where they should be. They're so afraid of really, what do I do? How do I know? How do I see into the crystal ball? If they would just make it about people, the technology will take care of itself. So all you really have to do, and you all know this because that's why you're here, but if you just ask yourself 3 questions, you'll know the technology answer. And the 3 questions are, what kind of information do I want to share? Who do I want to reach? And where are they? And then go there. That's it. And you need to ask yourself those 3 questions, not just once, you got to ask it periodically because the answers may change. You may find that there's somewhere else you also need to go. You may find that there's multiple places that you need to go. So one more time, you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. What kind of information, what kind of ideas do I want to share? Who do I want to reach? And where are they? And then go there. And thank you very much.